Advanced Residential Applications and Case Studies. Chapter 1, Introduction to Advanced Applications. Page 18. Lender or Underwriting Guidelines. But remember, this course is focused on properties which, for one reason or another, do not fit the mold. Because of that, and generally speaking, these guidelines would be very difficult to apply while still producing credible results. Appraisers sometimes make the mistake of choosing comparables in an attempt to meet these guidelines. Yet, due to the uniqueness of the subject property, the sales selected are not really comparable. This results in bad comps, which results in a non-credible value conclusion and subsequently a bad appraisal report. End of page. Page 19. Non-traditional theory. When the subject property is truly unique, the appraisal problem becomes much more difficult. So, what do you do when there are no comps? In this situation, other techniques not normally used with conforming properties need to be employed. A brief overview of these techniques is provided here, but we will explore them in greater detail later in this course. The key is to think of what can, that's highlighted, be done to solve the problem, not what cannot, that's highlighted, be done. Here are a few things that will help you find a solution. Common sense, creativity, good judgment, your experience, knowledge of local markets, and buyer profiles. The idea is to put yourself in the shoes of a potential buyer and ask, where else can I find properties that could represent a reasonable alternative to the subject? For example, if the subject property is a ranchette on 5 acres with a barn and corral for horses, where else would a buyer look for a similar horse property? The primary buyer motivation is to find a property where horses can be kept, not necessarily a home with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths with 2,300 square feet. For example, even in suburban areas, similar horse properties could be 20 or 30 miles away in a different community. If these represent a reasonable alternative to the subject. End of page. Page 20. Non-traditional techniques. Adjustments used in an appraisal of a home located in a tract development often will not be appropriate for a complex property for various reasons. Common sense and good judgment are needed in deciding what properties are comparable to the subject. Highlights of techniques and issues relating to each of the three approaches to value: sales comparison approach, cost approach, and income approach, are presented here. A more detailed discussion of these items is included later. Sales comparison approach. What is buyer motivation? The buyer profile. Who are the potential buyers and what are they looking for? Paired data, sometimes called matched pairs. Real world versus theory. Paired data always works perfectly in the classroom setting. But once you get into the real world, the data you need is sometimes not available. For the complex assignment, paired data analysis becomes extremely difficult, and the process often has to be tweaked to work with whatever data is available. And there are times when the results of the pairings shed no light on the solution. Extrapolation, or making an estimate beyond the range of known data. This concept is useful when the subject has characteristics outside the range of typical properties in the area. A home with a living area much larger than any comparable sales is an example where extrapolation would be used. Qualitative analysis and relative ranking. When it is difficult to make quantitative adjustments, ranking the comparable sales relative to the size of the living area, for example, can be a means of estimating a value for the subject. In the end, any adjustments made must reflect the market and be based on good judgment, experience, and objectivity. Final test. Is it reasonable? Cost approach. Although we all know the cost does not necessarily equal value, cost can be the basis of adjustments made for various features. Often, the cost approach is given more consideration than typical due to the lack of market data. Therefore, an accurate estimate of land value is very important. Contribution. This principle holds that the value of a component is based on its contribution to the whole property. This is known as the contributory value. And income approach. Rent difference can be used to support adjustments made using a percentage adjustment. With a gross rent multiplier, GRM, rent can be used to estimate value when there is no market data available for the subject. Condos in a depressed market, for example, or properties with stigma. End of page.